In 1775, Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet stating that the freedoms of man can only be maintained by limiting the power of government. The pamphlet was called Common Sense, and today it still is Common Sense. Your hosts, Representative Patricia Morgan, Louis Vargas, and Elizabeth Smith with the news, special guests Robert Imbruglia and Anthony DeMarinis, brought to you by the Rhode Island Republicans, and now with the news from a different perspective.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Smith.
And I'm Representative Doreen Costa.
And together we're reporting for Common Sense. First, I'd like to welcome our guest anchor, Representative Doreen Costa. Louis Vargas will be back next week.
Thanks, Liz. And now with the news. A pension settlement has been reached, but many are warning that it is not such a good deal for Rhode Islanders. Go Local Prov guest mindsetter Michael Riley speaking on the pension settlement. The big state pension settlement avoids the Armageddon in Rhode Island for now, but not for much longer. The state pension system is still in a very precarious state using the state's own definition of critical status. He went on further to say, more importantly, the municipal pension system is far worse off than the state and threatens to drive Rhode Island into the free fall. In just 3 months' time, both Providence and the state will be required to conform to GASB 68 and report realistic pension liabilities. That is the whole reason for imposing GASB 68 and forming a fair way to compare the pension plans and liabilities of plans across the nation. All Rhode Island municipalities will be reporting sharply higher liabilities on June 30th, 2015. Speaking on the funding mechanism for offsetting these mounting liabilities are supposed to be the return on assets set aside to fund liabilities. The ratio of assets to the present value of liabilities is known as the funding ratio. The top 25 most populous cities in America have a median funding pension ratio of approximately 73%. This June, Providence will be in the 21% range, and the state of Rhode Island is 46% funded. And that's after reform and 5 years of bull markets.
A Rhode Island Superior Court judge ruled that computational errors by the Bristol-Warren Regional School District cost the town of Warren as much as $2 million in local education aid this past school year. In response to a request for declaratory judgment filed by the town of Warren last summer, Superior Court Judge Louis Mattis ruled Friday morning that the Bristol-Warren Regional School District improperly apportioned state education aid between the two towns for the 2014-2015 school year, ultimately giving Bristol more state aid than it was due. Simply put, Warren taxpayers paid almost $2 million more and Bristol $2 million less than they should have in the past year. How did this happen? Since 2010, the state has used a variable rich funding formula to determine how much each student in every town across the state would receive in state education aid. The formula took into account many factors, and ultimately per pupil value is assigned. And that number is then multiplied by the number of students in the town to determine each town's state aid. Warren officials argue that district officials erred by taking that total amount and dividing it by the number of students in the entire district to determine how much state aid each town would be credited. That computation was flawed, they argued, because it normalized all students in the district. The idea for the lawsuit came from Warren Rep. Jan Malik, who first noticed last year what he believed was computational errors at the district level. Former Council President Chris Stanley, who fought hard for this case, and Warren, said he was thrilled at the judge's ruling. This was a long, hard-fought battle that will save the taxpayers over $10 million over time. Stanley said, "I'm delighted that the town was successful. Sweet vindication for the Republican, since his constituents were convinced the verdict would never go in Warren's favor."
In the latest news on Governor Gina Raimondo's effort to spur economic growth, Go Local Prov uncovered that Commerce Rhode Island has been riddled with postponed and canceled meetings, resulting in only one meeting since Gina took office. To make matters worse, Governor Raimondo failed to attend the only meeting that happened with Commerce Rhode Island. Commerce Rhode Island is a board whose goal is to play an important role in jump-starting our struggling economy, creating jobs, and expanding opportunity for all Rhode Islanders. Said Raimondo's press secretary, Marie Aberger, the governor is currently in the midst of making decisions regarding these board appointments and will have more to share soon. In the meantime, this board tasked with helping our economy needs to help itself get organized first, and the taxpayers are left waiting.
And now we send you over to the State House to see what the Republican caucus has been up to.
So we've heard some rumors about the 195 land. Can you tell us exactly what you know is happening with that?
Well, I know there's supposed to be a walkthrough tomorrow by some of the principals, but again, I'd say we got to proceed with caution. You know, we want to make sure we're looking at all the angles, make sure that they're not going to start putting us on the hook for leases and revenue enhancements. So we'll have to look at the fine print, because these people have operated before on the convention center, and that was a bill of goods that was completely different from what we signed up for back in the 80s. So I caution everybody to look at that very carefully, and I don't want to see a single nickel going to that, because it's individual. They're very wealthy investors. They should be able to they should be able to raise their own money.
Leader Newberg, we've heard a bit about bills that are being worked on here at the State House, but can you walk us through what it's like to be a state representative? What's it like in the day of a state representative here at the State House?
Well, there really isn't a typical day. It's a year-round job, but it's not necessarily a lot of work all the time. It's moments of intense work and time commitment followed by days or weeks of inactivity, depending on what time of year. For example, we get very busy here in June. I'm a partner in a law firm in Boston. I have a very busy legal practice, but I always keep June basically free, because I know at any time in June I may have to come in here and be here till 2 o'clock in the morning. On the other hand, this time of year, we're here in the beginning of April. There's things going on, there's committee hearings, but I arrived today around 3:30, and I'll be leaving probably by about 5:30, and I'll be going home. I got other things to do tonight. If I had something to stay for, I'd stay. So it very much varies.
Hi, I'm here with Representative Sherry Roberts, and like any good representative will do, she's trying to put her citizens in her district back to work. How are you doing that, Sherry?
Well, I just met with the superintendent in Coventry High School, and I want to have a meeting with the West Greenwich superintendent as well, because I want to get the kids there trained for positions that are coming up. There are between 500 and 700 or 800 positions coming up at Electric Boat within the next couple of years. So obviously we need people to make these submarines. We need to get these kids trained for these jobs, because not every kid is going to go to college. So I thought that would be good if we could get some of my own district ready for these positions.
All right, perfect.
Go Local Prov is reporting that Operation Stand Down, a nonprofit organization which aims to end homelessness among veterans, announced last week that they would be opening a third Rhode Island branch in Newport. The Newport branch will supplement offices in Johnston and West Warwick. The Newport office will have a staff of retired military personnel to assist veterans who are homeless, veterans who are at risk, or looking for work. In addition, the Newport office will have a food pantry and a clothing shed available for all veterans. Through our work of serving veterans throughout Rhode Island and southeast Massachusetts, Operation Stand Down Rhode Island has seen a significant need to have a presence in the East Bay. Director of Communications and Development, Deidre Quattro, told Go Local Prov a reception for the opening will be held on April 29th at 164 Broadway in Newport. For more details, see their website, osdri.org, or contact Deidre Quattro at 401-383-4730. We here at Common Sense urge you to support this great organization.
And speaking of veterans, according to the Providence Journal, officials from the Providence VA Medical Center says it's making strides towards providing better care to veterans, even as government data shows it's still failing to provide every patient with primary care appointment within 30 days. The range the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has told Congress is its standard. About 2,700 medical appointments completed at the Providence VA from September to February failed to meet the health system's timeliness goal, according to the government data issued by the Associated Press. This is out of a total of over 136,000 completed appointments, or about 2%. Of those, 574 involved a delay of longer than 60 days, a figure that does not include cancellations, patient no-shows, and instances where veterans gave up and sought care elsewhere. Still, the Providence VA fared a little better than the health system's national average for delayed appointments, which was at 2.8%. The AP analyzed the 6-month data from 940 VA hospitals and clinics nationwide and found the number of medical appointments delayed 30 to 90 days has not decreased since Congress gave the VA $16.3 billion in August to hire more doctors, open new clinics, and expand a program for veterans to obtain care outside the department's facilities. The number of appointments that take longer than 90 days to complete has nearly doubled, basically proving once again the federal government continues to spend money with nothing to show for it except the frustration veterans feel when seeking care. That's it for the news this week. Now let's join our host, Representative Patricia Morgan, as we meet with this week's special guest, Gary Morse, as we talk about Roadmap Rhode Island and how it could affect us all. Are you kidding me? Just when you thought former Governor Chafee disappeared, not so fast, Rhode Island, in case you haven't heard. This week, former Governor Lincoln Chafee announced all over America he's exploring the possibility of running for President of the United States.
I'm Lincoln Chafee, and I am a Democrat considering a run for President of the United States.
Okay, let's see. Lake Chafee was elected governor with under 40% of the electorate, dismal approval ratings spiraling down every year, didn't run for re-election because he knew he'd be defeated. Oh yes, and these little dandies, changing the name of a Christmas tree to a holiday tree. I'm sorry, Governor Chafee, folks down here in the South don't take too kindly to your holiday tree. We think you must have hit your head. Telling people that same-sex marriage will be an economic boost to the Rhode Island economy. And let's not forget this proposal, pot for potholes, to justify the legalization of marijuana. According to Go Local Prov, Chafee's chances are exactly 0, said Jennifer Duffy with the Crook Political Report. As he's proven in the past, he's a terrible fundraiser and a weak retail campaigner. That makes it hard to raise the $100 million or so it will take to run a real primary race or connect with voters in Iowa. Another great reaction from Go Local Prov. Veteran Rhode Island political pollster Victor Profugi offered this perspective on Thursday. Quote, "My immediate response was to laugh out loud." Unquote. That would be virtually all Rhode Islanders' gut reaction. Let's take a moment to enjoy the Chafee follies.
Minority, you're imposing your will, and you're making people unhappy in a season of joy. That's not right. You're not doing the right thing, Governor.
I don't make anybody happy. I just said, somebody was saying to me back with the bad weather we've had back home and all the potholes, we should have the revenue go to infrastructure, pot for potholes. Somebody's sales were coming in. Just sent money to Obama. I couldn't sleep last night from the left to see this cocky wacko there.
Did you just say cocky wacko?
Okay, I think I get it now. He's running for POTUS because absence has been added to the job description, courtesy of Barack Obama. Governor, haven't you done enough to these people already? Chafee for president? Are you kidding me?
Welcome to Common Sense. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and this is a program where we try to make sense out of the policies that affect your life and come up with common sense solutions. And today I have two guests, which is different. These two gentlemen are from the Rhode Island section of the American Society for Quality. That's how I know them. But they also have jobs. So I'm going to introduce them with their jobs. This is Bob Imbruglio, and he is working as a quality manager with Pentair. A lean manager with Pentair. And this is Tony DeMarinis, who I've known for the longest time at the ASQ, and he is now kind of semi-retired. You're a consultant.
An independent quality consultant.
An independent quality consultant, which means he goes around to a lot of companies and helps them work on their lean initiatives, which every company out there in private industry, I think today, is focused on getting the most out of every dollar that they have to spend with their employees. And suppliers and buildings and everything, and that's what you gentlemen do.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about your jobs and what you do for private industry. Why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, my expertise is in sterilization and quality systems. So when there are companies that either have trouble with their current regulations or meeting the current regulations, I'll be involved in finding the cause and helping them to respond and come up with systems that will keep them in compliance from then on. Cost-effective solutions to keep them in compliance from then on.
Okay, so root cause analysis.
Oh, yes.
And process improvement, continuous improvement.
Oh, yes.
These are kind of words that they use in the quality field all the time that now we probably don't understand very much. I know they don't understand it almost at all in government. Bob, you want to add a little bit?
A lot of what we do is looking at the process that people are using to do their jobs. We find that the problems aren't with the people. The problems are with the process we give them to work with. And what we do is we look at those processes to find the roadblocks, the stumbling points, the things that prevent them from being very effective. And then we attempt to remove those so that a person can actually get more accomplished without having to work any harder. And therefore, they do a much better job of providing for their customers.
All right. Now, Bob, you've been really involved in lean government.
Yes, I was a executive master black belt in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a year.
That sounds really impressive.
It does sound
executive
impressive.
master black belt. How do you get to be an executive master black belt?
I've got over almost 15 years of background in Lean and Six Sigma. And I've taken an awful lot of training myself, and I've been certified to different levels. Master black belt's the highest level. And at that level, you train and mentor a lot of other people. And I was well enough known so that I was approached by a consulting company and asked to come up to Massachusetts and help them roll it out in their division of capital asset and management and maintenance. So I worked with them for a year, doing several projects with them. I think we did 12 projects during the course of the year. So I've had some background with working with the government. I've seen where it can work and where it needs to be improved and what some of the stumbling points there are too.
All right, so are you saying that government works different from private industry?
Absolutely, it does.
Okay.
But the important thing to remember is this isn't something that hasn't been tried and worked well in government before. There's over 18 states, numerous counties, cities, etc., that have had tremendous luck and impact with reducing the cost to their taxpayers by using these programs. Ohio is one of the best known. They've been reporting a 40-to-1 return on investment.
So for every dollar they spend on quality or lean
projects.
government, lean projects, they're saving $40?
Correct.
Well, we could use a lot of that here in Rhode Island, couldn't we?
Not only could we use that in Rhode Island, but I know that with people like you, there is an interest in not only doing it at the state level, but the municipal level. Because this works for cities, towns, counties, anything along those lines.
Anywhere that there's a work process.
Anywhere anybody does anything, these processes will help them.
All right. I wonder, Tony, if you could talk a little bit about what are the differences between government and private industry. And
Okay.
I know from talking to people at the State House about performance management that not very many of them know anything about it. Because they're not involved in private industry. They just never heard the words statistical process improvement or whatever it is. They've not heard these words. So to them, they think that there isn't a place for it in government.
Yep.
So I wonder if you could talk about the differences and what some of the challenges are.
One of the big differences is they don't have any direct link to the customer. Matter of fact, when I give my classes, many times I'll find, I say, for government employees there, who are your customers? Oh, we don't have customers. But they do have customers, and they don't understand. But because they start out with the impression we don't have customers, there's no incentive to focus on customer satisfaction.
So they're just thinking about changing of money. Here's your product, give me $40.
Yep, that's what they're thinking. So they don't have the concept of everyone has a customer, and what do they have to do to satisfy that customer? Another big difference between government and industry is the government seldom goes broke. If an industry doesn't do it right, they lose their customers, they're gone. If the government doesn't do it right, well, we just get more taxes next year and we'll be fine. As a result, there's not an incentive to constantly improve like we have out in industry. That's why these tools were developed out in industry, because we need them out there.
You need customer satisfaction. You need to make sure that everything is working at the best that it can.
Exactly.
Where in government, we don't necessarily look for that.
Correct.
I know one of the problems that I see all the time is, well, we've always done it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We've always done it that way. And I guess we've gotten so used to, well, of course that's how we do it, that nobody is encouraged to look at a better way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. One of the things we find that one of the concepts of lean is looking at things and looking at the waste that's in the process. Most people don't understand the various kinds of waste that are out there, but just for general purposes, if you've never done a lean project, approximately 80% of your working day is waste. So think about all the hours that all the state people put in trying to do their job every day. 80% of that could be wasted.
Where do you get that statistic? Because that's alarming.
It's proven. It's a proven statistic. It's well known by any lean practitioner.
In government specifically, in anything. That 80%. So in private industry too.
Absolutely.
80% of a worker's day is wasted.
It's
not
wasted,
productive.
Non-productive effort. They're not satisfying their customer with 80% of their time.
Well, on that really startling statistic, we're going to take.
Are you kidding me? Politics is an art, and so is medicine. I get that. But does that mean legislators have any business telling doctors how to manage those healing arts? Well, Senator Joshua Miller seems to think he can do just that. His bill, Senate 326, establishes hard-coded nurse-to-patient ratios for use in all licensed hospitals. Where is it written that he knows anything about the hospital business? And whatever happened to decisions on a case-by-case basis? Senator Miller's bill seems to be about standardizing staffing at a high, read expensive, level, no matter what medical staff feels is needed to deliver the finest care. Once again, we see a sneak attack on hospital costs, despite the fixed-price environment in which they try to provide that excellence in care. With legislators like that, who needs enemies? Are you kidding me?
Hello, Rhode Island. My name is Arthur C. Shopper. I am a local and national writer and radio host. Also a key contributor to 990WBOB.com based in Cranston, Rhode Island. And I'm reaching out to you through Common Sense Rhode Island to spread the conservative message, not just from the Ocean State, but across the country, even to the Golden State where I live. Tune in to the State of the Union. That's my radio show, State of the Union, from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Thursday. I talk about the local, the national, and the international news, plus my take on it. I'll be talking about Rhode Island as well as California, and even what's going on in the world too. So tune in every Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find my site at 990WBOB.com. at twilighttalkradio.com, and you call in at 424-243-9626. Make sure that you press 1. That's how you get in the queue.
Welcome back. I'm here with Bob Imbruglio and Tony DeMarinis, who are experts in lean processes, right? Quality improvement. And you just gave me a startling, honestly, a troubling statistic that 80% of our workday is not productive.
Correct.
Which is not good, especially when you really multiply that by the thousands and thousands of workers that we have in government, let alone in private industry. So I wanted you maybe to explain to folks out who are viewing us today, and what are the kinds of things that you look at. Let's take, for instance, a customer representative. He gets a complaint.
Okay. The first thing you have to look at, first of all, is you look at it from the customer's viewpoint. What is it that the customer wants done? They want a resolution to their complaint. They want an answer.
As quickly as possible.
So anything that does not provide the answer to the customer is not adding value, is waste. So taking that piece of paper, reading the paper, passing it off to somebody else who also has to read the paper, even though those may be steps that are in your process, they're waste. They're not providing the answer to the customer. All the consumer wants to know is, what's the answer to my complaint?
But we've always done it that way. We take the complaint, we write it down, and we pass it to a person who gives it back to us.
So what
and then we pass it to another person.
What we do as lean people is we look at that whole process, and we'll track it through from start to end. And we do what we call a process map, where we write down every step.
Every step
every single step.
From the phone call on.
Correct. Including how long does that piece of paper sit on somebody else's desk before they pick it up and read it. Anytime the paper's sitting and doing nothing, that's obviously waste, isn't it? Nothing's
sure.
happening.
If it sits there for a week or two.
Well, that's
when
all
somebody
part
wants
of this.
an answer. Sure.
So what we do is look at that process, and then we rate each step and decide, does this add value, or is this just pure waste? Or is this something we're only doing because that's what the rules tell us we have to do?
We've always done it that way.
There you go. And then we start removing steps that don't make sense to even have them in there.
Just make it lean. Hence the word.
And what we do then is we find that in virtually every case, even a very complicated process, we can usually reduce that wasted time at least 50%. And 30% waste is a lot better than 80% waste. So we keep on working at it. That's where the term continuous improvement comes from.
You know, and obviously the goal is to make a process efficient and effective, right? But I can't help think that the people who are shuffling paper all day long, they must be happy not to have to shuffle it that one extra time that adds no value to the process either. Sure. Their satisfaction with their own job must go up because they know what they do is meaningful and not just, okay, I read it, stamp.
Patricia, what you just said is really important too, because you said they know. One of the things that we do with lean processes is that we talk to the people doing the job. We let them help us define what needs to be done. They have some of the best ideas out there. They've just never been asked or empowered enough to make those changes.
They've never been given the chance to question, why am I doing this?
And that's what my job really is, not to tell people what needs to be done, to work with them to help them tell me how to make the process better.
But Tony, we were talking earlier about one of the really important things when you start looking at process improvement, which is data collection.
Data collection and the metrics. That will tell you if you're doing a good job with the process. Think about any process. How do you know you're doing a good job? Well, when you look at the metrics from that process, regardless of in the case of handling a complaint, cycle time is probably one of the best metrics because that's what's important to the customer. How quickly can I get my answer back?
That's what cycle time means.
Right. Not how many papers you shuffled today or how many people you need to shuffle the papers, but what is your cycle time from when the complaint comes in to when the answer goes out? That there is a valuable metric dependent totally on customer satisfaction.
Sure, that's the measure. That's
Exactly.
the measurement
Right.
that means something.
So that's the data to
I
collect.
called you and you didn't get back to me for 80 days. Now I can imagine many of my constituents would be pretty ticked off if I just let them sit out there chilling their
That's
heels
right.
for 80 days.
Right.
And yet that routinely happens, I think.
Yeah.
Long times before they get an answer back to their questions. So that would be the measurement that you would start with.
In this case,
One of them, yes.
correct.
Yeah.
You have to look at every process you're looking at and determine what is that best metric.
What's the best measurement
for that process?
to find out whether you're doing it right or not?
Correct.
Cycle time is always a good one. Almost everything has a cycle that you can measure. There are going to be some instances where that may not be the appropriate measurement. And I can't just come off the top.
I know.
of my
Well,
head.
with constituent service, that
That's
measurement is
important
really
one.
a pretty
Everyone
important one.
everyone can understand that.
Yeah, in any part of government, right? Whether you're going to the DMV and you're
Yep.
sitting there, you want to
Yep.
know: am I going to be there for 12 hours, 5 hours, or can I
Right.
get in and out in 45
Right.
minutes?
Waiting is one of the biggest forms of waste.
Right.
It is. It's
Well-
non-productive time. I mean,
Exactly.
as a representative, I get a lot of complaints about I asked for this and I still haven't gotten this answer back from whatever agency. They're waiting. They need that. They need the information so they can go on with their life or with whatever their issue is.
We actually say that there's 8 forms of waste, and I'm not going to get into giving you a class
All
on
8,
that right
okay.
now. But waiting is one of the primary ones. Waiting is one of the biggest, and another big one is transporting that paper around. You mentioned it moves from desk to desk to desk to desk. That's all transportation.
And can be touched by the same hand
right.
several
Yep.
times.
Those are 2 of the biggest forms of waste that we see out there. The 6 others that we won't get into right now, but that's what we look at. Which of these wastes are we seeing? What's a lot of that there? How do we remove it? Waiting is almost always easiest to measure with cycle time. How long does it take to get something from the very beginning of the process, from that phone call to that answer to the customer, the consumer?
And there are external customers,
And internal.
my constituents,
Yep.
and internal.
Correct.
You guys want to talk about that? I mean, people don't think about internal customers at all, where an agency is talking to another agency or department.
But we have that. We also have the employees. Bob mentioned a while ago that the people are forced to live with the process that they have. I mean, the employees who are working on the process, those are the first internal customers that a manager has to deal with. And then there's all his other internal customers, the other agencies within the organization they have to contact. They said 80% of the time is wasted. Imagine if you're an agency and you're waiting on that agency to get back to you. There's a lot of your waste built into the process right there.
Sure. And they're working on something. They're eager to get it done. It's fresh in their minds.
Right.
They've got all the data and statistics and where they're going, and then they have to wait for a piece of paper to come in.
And every time you
And
do
it-
that, every time you put something down and walk away from it because you're waiting for someone else, when that does come back to you, you've got to put down what you were doing then, pick this back up, refresh your memory on what it is. All of that is waste.
Right.
That's why I say 80% of your day really is waste.
Essentially,
Because each time you put something down and take something, you have to bring yourself up.
right, pick up the speed again. And essentially, the thing is, if the customer will not pay for it, then it's not value added. If they won't pay you to move the paper from here to here, or they won't pay you to wait for somewhere, what does the customer want to wait for? They don't pay for wait time, but the time is one of those
They
resources.
pay for wait time at the DMV.
Yeah,
they pay dearly.
They're being forced to pay for it.
forced
The
to pay
question
for it.
really is, would they be willing to pay for
Exactly.
it given the choice?
Given the choice.
No.
So if they're willing to pay for it given the choice, that's adding value.
Right.
That's what you want to do. Only provide those things that your customer is actually willing to pay you to do.
And if you
eliminate as much of the others as possible.
And you find, my understanding is that the employees themselves have better satisfaction from their work when you
absolutely, yes.
take just those
That's the
annoying little things that they have to,
That's the internal customer satisfaction. Absolutely.
All right, well, on that, we'll stop for a minute and we'll come right back.
Are you kidding me? The average Rhode Islander is going to be hit with yet another tax courtesy of Governor Raimondo. According to the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, Governor Raimondo's budget proposal would impose a 13% tax on short-term rentals. The proposal would treat owners of private homes and cottages like hotels by requiring them to collect a 7% tax and a 6% hotel tax for each tenant who rents the property for 30 days or less. The proposed tax will create burdens for Rhode Island's residential property owners and barriers for tourists. But here's some highlights from the 2016 budget, Article 11. It would require homeowners to collect taxes from tenants on short-term rentals of homes, condominiums, month-to-month rentals, short-term military rentals, student rentals, other rentals throughout the state. Virtually no one is left out so we can spread their wealth around. The proposal sets no minimum threshold. A homeowner who occasionally rents to an acquaintance for a weekend is subject to the state regulation, collection, and monthly reporting requirements. What? Oh, and it gets worse. The same existing law that states that at each day an individual who engages in business without a state permit constitutes a separate offense. The maximum penalties are $5,000 per offense, and yes, or imprisonment for 1 year. Come get me. Yes. Under these guidelines, you too could go to jail just for charging your grown son or daughter couch rent in your home. You might want to rethink that exit strategy. Oh yeah, and here's the kicker. This will take effect on July 1st, 2015, right in the middle of the summer rental season. Thanks for that. We're all so glad you asked what we thought first. You know, we're all made of money around here. I can hear Governor Raimondo now. I can see tax revenue from my house. Are you kidding me?
Join us on Verizon Channel 34 or Cox Channel 15. Saturdays at 4 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. Find us on Facebook at Common Sense and on Twitter at CommonSenseRI.
Welcome back. And today we're continuing our conversation with Bob Imbruglio and Tony DeMarinos, both from the Rhode Island section of the American Society for Quality, about lean government initiatives in our state. Last year, and this year, I have sponsored a bill called the Rhode Island Performance Excellence Program, which is about lean government, and it is about doing the things that you guys do, right? I was a chairman of the American Society for Quality for 2 years, way back when, and I'm a believer that this can have a really important effect on our government, making it more cost efficient and customer service friendly, internal and external customers. So last year we put in the bill. This year I think we improved it. We worked not only with the Rhode Island section of the ASQ, but with URI and Brian Daniels, who is the head of our Division of Performance Management in the Office of Management and Budget, has been just a really great helper in this, because he's a believer too. Right. He has seen it work and he knows it can work in Rhode Island. I understand that Governor Raimondo has also begun a group.
Yes, I'm involved in that with them. There is good progress with that. You know, she has seen the results that we can have in other states. She's pushing hard to bring it into the state government. A couple of state agencies have already experimented with lean. DEM for one.
DEM has been doing it for a couple of years.
And, you know, we're working with them, and we're also working with the state of Ohio, because Ohio Lean is one of the premier lean government sections in the country.
Like the
benchmark. And we're trying to, benchmark with them and share information and see what we can do to bring it more into the state. That's progressing nicely, and by the time this is on, you may know more about it.
All right, great. I'm glad to hear it, because last week we did a segment about Inspector General and about getting waste and fraud and abuse out of the system. I think our taxpayers desperately know that something needs to be done, and I think lean government is a way that we can get more value out of everything we do in government.
Absolutely.
Right? And this isn't about, fraud and abuse, but it's just about making things more efficient, understanding how to cut out those non-value added steps the way we've always done it, mentality.
That's it exactly, Patricia.
All right, so just to explain the RIPEP, Rhode Island Performance Excellence Program a little bit, the very first part of it is just to get people to understand the language of lean government. We've never done it in government before, so people aren't familiar with the terminology. So I wondered if you guys would talk a little bit about...
Well, I mean, just the fact, I'm sure people have heard us say a few things here that they're wondering just
cycle time.
Cycle time, and when I mentioned 80% waste, I'm sure people perked up.
Value added versus non-value added.
So there is a language that's used throughout lean, and the idea is to ensure that everybody that gets involved in this is using the terminology the same way, has the same understanding of the concepts. Because one thing that'll happen is if you go out and hire 4 different consultants to teach this, you're liable to get 4 different ways of talking about it.
Well, we need everybody on the same page,
That's
though.
The
so
idea.
The first part of this is to develop that same page.
Standard. Right.
And training the trainer.
Train the trainer.
Talk about that a little bit more. Why is that important?
Well, that's like the first step. You can't expect the trainer to train people the right way.
Who's
if
the
you
trainer?
haven't trained them first. Well, it could be someone from Rhode Island ASQ. It could be someone from URI.
Could be their manager.
Could be their manager. Eventually, you'll want the manager to be able to train the people.
Could be interested parties that aren't even at the management level. You may find a few of your state employees who, have heard about this, may know a little bit about it, raise a hand and say, I want to get involved.
I'd like to be the head lead or the lead in this project.
We'll train them to do it so that it's all consistent across the board. Everybody's using the tools the same way, speaking the same language.
Okay, so that's the first part of it. Then we have a scholarship program. And the scholarship is, it's open to anybody in government, state, local government. It could be a quasi, it could be an office, it could be a division, it could be whatever. If they have a project that they would like to undertake to make it better, right? To make the customer service better, to make it cost less, to make it just more efficient, more effective, they would submit an application to a group of 7 that would be people from the ASQ, from URI, from OMB, right? And you would judge those proposals and pick, I think we said 10 in the first year, and we would give them the money, the scholarship, to hire a consultant.
Right, because that's usually the most expensive and the most daunting part. And we all know, every state, local, town, city, doesn't matter, they're all strapped for cash. Asking them to put out the money to hire a consultant to come in and do something.
That they're not sure it's going to help them or not in the beginning.
We need to provide them that assistance so that they can do it, get the right people in there, and get this thing started. Once you get the first project done, this stuff becomes self-funding.
Yes.
What you manage to generate as savings from each one can then be turned over to allow you to keep doing this.
Yep.
Well, and honestly, I think a consultant is really important in the beginning because we've never done it before, right? You actually need somebody who has done it before, who can take them through the steps and make sure that they're just not saying the words, but they're doing the activities, right? And actually having the action plan and a goal and all those things that are important to a project.
Yeah. Just knowing what to call the tools in your toolbox is only half the problem. You have to know when you're going to use the plier and when you need to use the hammer and when you need to use the saw.
Right. And a consultant keeps them moving, so they can't say, oh, well, I'm busy today, let's just put it off.
Yeah.
Right? I'm coming, we're going to meet for our hour, our 2 hours, and we're going to move it forward.
Especially when you're just starting this, you're going to find that because people are being asked to do this, as well as do their regular job, where do they come up with the time?
With the time.
You need the consultant who's going to take on and do some of the work for them, the right work. But keep them involved, keep them on deadline, keep them moving forward, and make sure that they're reaching forward to make their goals.
All right, so the first 6 months of the scholarship it's a 6-month scholarship, fully funded to the organization, the government organization. The next 6, if they want to continue, is 50-50. So the state keeps giving them half of it, they have to come up with half of it. And that's so that they get buy-in.
Right.
Now, they're going to say, oh, that's money, but you were just saying, by then they should understand what they're going to say.
6 months in, you should have already recouped savings from your first project. Now, granted, this isn't like manufacturing, where savings is hard dollars in your hand. Here, it's going to be more the fact that now that you've done the project, people's work is easier for them to get done, so they have the time to invest in doing the second project. So it's more freed up time to do more things with the people that you have already on hand.
It could be cost too.
It could be.
Plus you have
I'm
less
not taking
frustration.
that away, but
I mean, you said in Ohio, for every dollar they invested in lean
40
government, they were getting
$40 back.
40% in savings, 40 times savings,
times.
$40
times
savings for every
Yeah.
one.
The scholarship
which
is like
huge.
seed money to get it started.
That's right. It's seed money, and imagine being able to spend $1 and getting 40 back in return for our municipalities, for our state government.
Or in
What
this
a-
case, not
what a
having to spend
weight
40.
off the, or not having to
Not
spend
having
40.
to spend
Spend
40
the next
is
40.
probably more what you were likely to see in government, because it's very difficult, as Bob said, to see a cash. You don't see cash coming in.
You don't see cash.
Exactly, you don't see cash, but
Only in the budget.
exactly. But seeing that you don't have to pay for this, oh, that's great. So you see the savings.
All right, so we're going to talk about the other two when we come back from this little break. We'll be right back.
What do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore.
Hi, welcome back. This is Common Sense, and we're continuing our conversation with Bob Imbruglio from Pentair in the Rhode Island section of the American Society for Quality, and Tony DiMarianis, who is a quality expert consultant.
Consultant, yes.
And also with the RIASQ. And we talked about the first part of the Rhode Island Performance Excellence Program. The second part is an awards program.
right.
Right? So they've gotten their consultant, and some of them, only 10 will get consultants. Some of them may go ahead and do these projects on their own. It may be a little bit harder for them, but they will be able to get
Right.
information and help just the same.
Right. There's
But
be support for them.
there'll be support. But they will have projects, they will run them down, they will get them to the conclusion. Hopefully they'll all be successful, and they will have gotten good things for their offices, their cities, their state. And at that point, we want them to,
Well, this gives them the opportunity to get some recognition for that project by submitting what they did, how they did it, what they gained from it, and now that'll go into a team competition where there will be an award for that, and we'll have a group of members who are judges sitting on the panel to judge which project is going to get the awards.
all right, so this group of 7 might be the judges, or we might use the ASQ, because we can get a ready supply of judges there. You guys do this for a living.
Yeah, that's true.
To judge the projects.
Right.
We're going to pick the top 3, and they will get a small monetary award that they can use for their next
Right,
project.
which is geared to help them do further projects.
Sure,
Right.
it's about continuous improvement,
Right.
It's
right?
like getting more scholarship.
That's right. More scholarship money, because by then they should see the power of this,
But
right?
the big thing is really, as Tony said, it's about recognition.
Yeah.
Not only are you recognizing these people for the work they did and their success, but you're also helping to spread that success to other areas.
Right.
One of the ways lean grows by leaps and bounds once people hear about it.
Yes.
When some department has success making something better, other departments are going to want to do the same thing.
They perk up and they say,
What-
let me see what that is.
What gets rewarded gets repeated. So if you want more of it, you got to reward it.
That's right. That's right.
And we're basing all of this really on something that the American Society of Quality does called the International Team Excellence Awards Program, which is a worldwide competition held once a year.
Yes.
And one of the things we're hoping to do is to be able to take our winner from the Rhode Island Awards and have them submitted to compete at the international, which would be
Right. Now-
really big time for them.
It would be wonderful. It really would. So, but our winner, is there a regional competition, and then
Right.
from the
Yeah.
regional you go
Correct.
up to the national competition, which is the big time.
Right.
And I can't. I fully believe that Rhode Island could be in that national
Certainly they could,
competition.
yes.
We could.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in time, I've actually competed twice at the international level, and I've been a judge at the international level 5 times.
Wow.
There is absolutely no reason why these teams that we're talking about wouldn't be able to compete at that level also.
And look at the guidance they would have in order to bring their project up to snuff to compete at that level.
Well, that's right. We actually have a very strong quality movement in Rhode Island,
Oh, yeah,
right?
the
In our private
section is
industry,
very strong, yeah.
it's very, very strong. I mean, you guys have been around. Well, I was involved. I know for a long, long time, right? So there are supports for them, and what a wonderful thing for the state if we could get this to be part of the culture by providing for it, supports for it, and then also rewarding it.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
All right. So then the last part is the MuniStat. This is kind of modeled after what they have in Massachusetts,
Right.
which is a best practices roundtable,
Correct.
which I think I've heard of some of the projects they've done up there, and I think, wow, how clever that they've been able to figure this stuff out, and they're really making a difference in communities. Here in Rhode Island, I think everybody knows that because of the problems that we've had, the stagnant economy, every municipality is strained right now. Right? They're having problems with their finances. So any way that we can help them make the most out of the money they have, so much the better. So the MuniStat is a roundtable.
Right. It's a sitting down, bringing people together, sitting them down, discussing what worked in one area, and in some cases, not only just sharing the successes, but sitting down and talking and asking, is anybody else having the same problem that we have? And then you can start looking at it. And early on, you mentioned root cause.
Yes.
That's what it's all about, looking for the reason why these things are happening. If it's widespread throughout a bunch of towns and agencies, usually it's the same reason that's causing it for everybody.
That's right. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If
So-
somebody else has figured out.
Right. And that's really what the MuniStat development up there is all about, bringing these people together to share ideas and questions and get them all working together on the same stuff. If the majority of towns and cities are having a problem with the same thing, then it's something that we ought to look at and fix.
Got to look at.
And if your neighbor found a way to fix it, and you know what he did to fix it, hey, you've got the same
Can
problem.
I borrow that?
Can I borrow it? Or, hey, I can go out and get one of those too.
Yes. Yes.
And we talked a little bit about one of the things
One
they
of the
did in
projects
Mass.
that I had seen in Massachusetts was vehicle
Right.
fleets,
Vehicle
fleet
use, yeah.
maintenance, and usage of vehicles. You
Everyone
want to
does that.
talk about it a little bit?
Well, one of the things they discovered in Mass was simply that, with all the vehicles they have, most of their money wasn't being spent on maintaining all of them. It was being spent on maintaining certain vehicles that were constantly breaking
The
down.
lemons. That's
But when
right.
all you're measuring is the amount of money you spend on repairs, instead of measuring the amount of money you spend on each individual vehicle, that gets hidden.
So, and part of the, I read that, their report on that. Part of the problem was they weren't collecting the data
Right.
by individual car. They were just saying,
total
if
budget.
something's wrong with your car, your vehicle, take it into the shop. The shop was fixing it, sending it back out. But they weren't tracking which cars were coming in, what were the problems
Yes.
with that car.
Right.
So they weren't keeping individual vehicle statistics. Now, if it was your or my car, right, and we were taking it back to the shop every 2 months to fix the suspension or,
But it's easy for us. We only have 1, 2, or 3 cars to track.
but we track our own
We
vehicles.
track them, exactly.
And if it's back and back and back, we trade it in and
gone.
get a new one.
And there we go
Municipalities
back
were
to
not.
something that Tony mentioned earlier. You've got to measure things, and you've got to measure the right thing. Well, what they ended up discovering was they were actually able to cut their repair costs quite a bit by getting rid of those few lemons, spreading the work around to the cars that weren't getting much use. In some cases, eliminating cars because the office had very little use for it, and they either rent a car when they need it or they draw one from a pool of available vehicles.
One of the keys to quality improvement is the Pareto principle. 80% of our cost is spent on 20% of the vehicles.
Exactly.
And 80% of that 80% is probably spent on only 20%, up to 20%. So that's
Two
4%.
vehicles are
Yeah,
causing all
exactly,
of the work. Sure.
Exactly.
And I know that they've used, I didn't read the study, but they've done it with garbage collection
Mm-hmm.
and road repair, even cleaning sidewalks,
And
those
that-
kinds of
And
things.
that's an excellent opportunity for benchmarking because so many municipalities have the same functions, the same processes. If you look at that's what the MuniStat is for. If you have someone over here who's doing it great and saving lots of money on it, well, that's who you look at and model your system after.
And there's nothing wrong with looking for those benchmarks outside of Rhode Island.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
talking to those
All
people.
right, now let's talk about that a little. I mean, I know you mentioned Ohio as being
Right.
the benchmarking state out there. I'm from Ohio, so that makes me feel good too. I'm from Rhode Island, but I started there. What other What other projects have they worked on in other states?
Colorado has won an award at the International Team Excellence Awards competition for what they did with their Department of Transportation.
Making the Department of Transportation better?
Highly responsive to the consumers and cutting the cycle time on repairing the roads tremendously.
Well, we could really use that in Rhode Island, couldn't we?
Florida Department of Education cut millions of dollars out of their budget by getting rid of copies of paper, doing it electronically.
Electronic copies,
So
yeah.
it can be done.
I saw that they saved $20 million in Florida.
In 1 year.
So there are just great savings that Rhode Island government could get from this program.
Absolutely.
We need to make it part of the culture, though, so I'm really hoping that the folks will get involved in the Rhode Island Performance Excellence Program. Call your rep, call your senator, tell them you want this, because it will really help Rhode Island and you. And thanks for watching. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.
Pat.
And for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was researching how Rhode Island manages its fresh water. I'd made some progress on the topic when the mail arrived that day. I stopped my forward progress and retrieved the contents of the almost ready-to-be-replaced mailbox. Amongst the many things in the box that day was the April 1st edition of Fortune magazine. Okay, so how did it come to be that Fortune made the box? I think it was one of those rewards notices I got that said that I could sign up for 20,000 miles worth of various magazines that I might read. At least they would make it to the reading room. Now, I recognize the guy on the cover as no other than Tim Cook. You know Tim. He was Steve Jobs' number 2 guy at Apple. Steve's untimely passing thrust Tim into the spotlight, and the Fortune people have addressed the trip that Steve has taken at Apple. I wish I had bought some of that stock. It's doing really well right now. The Fortune cover said, "The world's 50 greatest leaders." It got my serious attention, as we here in Rhode Island have a new set of leaders. So I wondered what it would take to have a Rhode Islander on next year's Fortune cover. Now, good idea. The Fortune staff had decided that each of the leaders had been through the crucible of leadership and triumphed. Each had mastered context, unquote. I guess that means that these folks were smart enough to figure out what they were involved in, and they set a course to succeed. So, that day, the water project went into the pending pile, and leadership got the nod. Who do the Fortune folks think are the world's 50 best leaders this year? And what was the criteria they used to pick those folks? Now, they asserted in their entry articles, entry comments, that the leaders that were chosen were visionaries who move others to act. They bring others to follow them on a shared quest. They are people looking for effectiveness and commitment and the courage to pioneer. The Fortune folks made the argument that the most important change affecting today's leaders, whoever they are, is that they are losing control. Okay, that doesn't quite sound right. Well, how do you succeed if you are losing control? The Fortune folks make the argument that leadership's success is now the ability to influence people that can't be controlled with money or force. These leaders see problems that are messy and outside the organization they have any control over. Is it true that, quote, you can't tell people what to do anymore, unquote? The Fortune folks claim that these leaders are dealing with constituencies they don't have real control over. That sounds almost overwhelming, and it certainly sounds close to home. It seems our new governor is finding that out. Now, there is a perception that great leaders have that everyone out there knows everything. And they can communicate, those people can communicate with everyone else, all at the same time. Now, that may not be totally true, but look around you at how many of us are typing, talking, or watching with a handheld device. It is scary. Now, we have access to all the world's information, almost. The optimistic remarks that are embedded in the article revolve around the assertion that opportunities to be effective are actually greater than ever. And we want leaders who will speak to us honestly about the challenges and opportunities that we face together. We want leaders who show courage and see hope. You know, this follows after the assertion that most of us really want to be led. No group achieves anything worthwhile without someone being in charge. Now that squares with my own personal experience. So, having established the leadership traits, the Fortune folk go on to give us their top 50 for the year. Now, the staff was assisted in the selection process by asking the 50 folks from last year, which was the first year, to nominate someone they thought should get on the list for this year. So, many of the class, of course the Fortune folk had the final say. Many of the class of 2015 are well known to all of us. There's, to name a few, John Roberts of the Supreme Court, Howard Schultz, Starbucks Chief Operating Officer, CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook CEO, just to name a few of the guys. Now, there were 11 women who made the cut, including the embattled CEO of General Motors, and that would be Mary Barra. Another of the ladies on the list is associated with our governor. Now famous, her famous idea to tax expensive homes. Now, that lady we're talking about would be Fortune's number 6 pick, and she would be Taylor Swift, who is described by the Fortune staff as, quote, the highest paid woman in the music business, unquote. Wow. The magazine goes on to describe the skills that she has displayed to get where she is today. Now, I don't think naming a tax for her is such a great idea here in Rhode Island. Maybe what we need to do is invite her to help us solve our more vexing financial problems. Now, I picked up the fact that only one military person made the list. One who is actually retired. And that would be Admiral William McRaven, USNRET. The Admiral is now the Chancellor of the University of Texas System. He got his Navy commission upon graduation from Texas, University of Texas, and then spent a career as a Navy SEAL, which I can assure you is not an easy task. Now, you may recall the Admiral was in charge of things when bin Laden went away. The article mentioned that the Admiral gave one of the all-time great commencement addresses to the class of 2014 at Texas. In fact, if you go to the graduationwisdom.com site, that speech is ranked number 3 ever. There have been many great commencement speeches over time, so I wanted to hear what made this one so noteworthy. I typed in McRaven commencement speech, and bang, got many, many hits. So, chose one, and for 19 minutes and 26 seconds, I watched and listened attentively while the Admiral described how his time at SEAL training produced 10 life lessons that all leaders who want to be successful should learn. I found the speech truly inspirational and highly recommend you give it a watch. Now, the many other leaders that the Fortune folks tell us about represent success stories that stimulate positive views of what can be done in our complex world. The political leadership in our state needs to overcome some of these same difficult obstacles that the Fortune selectees have managed to overcome. Now, I would like our new governor, our Speaker of the House, and our Senate President to review the methods that the number 20 Fortune selection was Detroit Mayor Mike Dugan and the former Detroit Emergency Manager Kevin Orr. Both these guys conspired to get Detroit back to life. Actually balanced a budget this last year. What were the most important and no doubt difficult decisions that these leaders had to make? We here in Rhode Island face huge challenges that only great leadership can help overcome. Have we got those leaders in place? Time will tell. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. God bless.
Oh,